Welcome to episode 10 of Manuscripting Pod, a show where I talk about writing, explore procrastination, and attempt to keep my inner critic hogtied and in the corner. In this episode, I'm exploring the concept of time. In terms of excitement this week, there are so many new good books out that I am not reading. I have all of the holds that I have from the library. I've let go back with reading only a couple of pages because nothing is just interesting me. And I'm also neck deep in edits on the novel that I just finished writing. So yeah, nothing very exciting in terms of what I'm reading. That said, I did watch the first episode of Cobra Kai, and I have to say, I really enjoyed it. So I might actually do some YouTube premium for just that show. So for today's main topic, like I said, I wanted to talk about time. And I had this epiphany the other day. I've got some major changes coming up in my life, and it's really made me examine time. And I want to start with a brief story about time and about why you just have to go after stuff because there's never enough time. Growing up, my grandfather always wanted to spend time drawing, painting, and making art. The only art he ever got to make was in woodworking. He was a gifted mechanic and head maintenance at the local college. Spent his life working 6 days a week, was often on call. He did more physical plant maintenance, but at least once a month he was on call, and when someone puked on the rug, my grandfather was the dude they called to clean it up in the middle of the night. So, most of my childhood he encouraged me to write and draw, came to my art shows, quietly smiled. When I was 12 or 13, I was struggling with oil paints. I still hate them to this day. I've never liked oil paints. He confided in me that he'd always dreamed of working with watercolors. Told me that when he retired, he was going to get a camper, drive all over the U.S., and maybe start painting, take a few classes, stuff like that. My senior year of high school, he retired. And he did. He bought himself a gigantic camper. He had to get a CDL license so he could drive the thing, which I think was part of the adventure for him. The holidays just weren't the same anymore. My grandparents were in Florida or Colorado or California, somewhere. We'd get a nice phone call, but they were having a blast. We were like, where are Grandma and Grandpa? This is really sad. We didn't even have any of my grandmother's horrible sugar cookies to complain about. My grandmother is a renowned, horrible cook. Fast forward to college. My first year, I got a call in the middle of my first semester to inform me that my grandfather had been diagnosed with lung cancer. He survived having a tumor removal. He recovered relatively well. He could no longer drive the large camper that he'd bought as part of his retirement, so they downgraded to a smaller camper, did some more touring once he was well enough. It took like 6 months before he was able to get back on the road. For the next year and a half, they drove all over the U.S., made sure he saw the Grand Canyon, and what else did I can't remember. There was one other thing he wanted to see, and I can't remember what it was. But cancer, it's a beast, and it came back. So he died between my third and fourth year of college in August. He was only 57, 2 years after he'd retired. And so yeah, that's a really sad, crappy story, but the moral of it is, if you bear with me for a few more moments, if you have something you want to do, you have to make the time to do it now. My grandfather didn't hate his job, but he didn't love it either. He enjoyed his coworkers, but the job, meh. Would his life have been happier if he'd added some art to it? Most definitely, probably. Probably would have loved to have painted along with Bob Ross, but he never did. And I don't know exactly what stopped him from drawing or painting. I mean, there was always, the quotes of when you become a man, you gotta leave childish things behind and all that crap. I know that when he did do some drawings, which he wood burned into a stool, he had talent. There was nothing he couldn't do if he had really sat down and tried. Something stopped him. Family work, something. There's always a reason for him not to make art. And so I was sitting down and I was thinking about the fact that, I really want to write. I really want to continue making my art. Life is short and time is our most precious resource. I've recently had a reason to compare and contrast some of my wasted time and how much of it I waste over a year. And I'm not a proponent of always staying busy for the sake of being busy. We all need downtime. If you haven't checked out the Bored and Brilliant segments of Note to Self, please do. Or you can check out Bored and Brilliant, the book by Manuscripting. Really fabulous book, but also the concept that she began exploring in Note to Self are really, really, really fabulous. So one of the things that I was looking at is the amount of time I lose in my commute. And after crunching some numbers, I waste in my commute 7.5 hours a week, 30 hours a month, or 390 hours a year. That's 16 and a quarter days. Yes, days lost in a year. It's over 2 weeks. And so then I started thinking about how many additional words could I write if I reclaimed those hours? It's 195 25-minute writing sessions. That is so many writing sessions. If I estimate 600 words as my average per 25-minute session, I could write an additional 117,000 words a year. Y'all, that's a novel or two depending on the genre. And right now I'm working to reclaim this lost time. I can't get into that plan yet, but let's just say it's in the works. And it's not just that I want to reclaim this wasted time, but learning a lesson, if you will, from death. It's important to actually take the time to do things that I want, the things that will bring joy to my life. Capturing that wasted time and turning it around into something that brings me happiness and joy adds immeasurable happiness to my life. It makes my life better. When I sit down and I use 25 minutes to write every morning, that makes me happier and better. So why not reclaim those 7.5 hours a week, those 30 hours a month, those 390 hours a year, 16 and a quarter days lost in a year. That's crazy. It's just so much time that I lose to the road. Here's to changing my life so that I can actually capture those days. So, all right. In terms of the check-in, this week I have worked 7 out of 7 days, but the days are different. I am doing my 25-minute sessions in the morning, but I'm not focusing necessarily on words. What I'm focusing more now is on just working, getting those 25 minutes in. So yesterday I got 69 words in 25 minutes. Part of that is because I was spending some of my time doing research during those 25 minutes, and usually my 25 minutes is just straight writing time. But I've been working on my outline for my NaNoWriMo novel, and I think that's important to include as a valid use of my writing time, because outlining is part of writing. And if I go into Nano without a good outline, it's just going to all fall apart. So I started my Nano notebook. I started a outline in JotterPad, started working on it. I did 544 words on it on my phone while I got to work super early one day because we were out of coffee. You guys don't need to know that. Anyway, I left for work early so I could go buy coffee at Starbucks. And I got there and I was 45 minutes early. So I sat in my car and I worked for 25 minutes on my phone on my outline. And that actually, I was surprised at how good that was. Using my phone was much more useful than I expected. And if I had the voice to text feature worked out a little better for JotterPad, the voice to text engine on the keyboard and for Android does not work well with JotterPad. It does work better going into Drive than it does going into JotterPad. It's just really laggy in JotterPad. So using it in Google Docs is much better. And I've been working in JotterPad for that outline, so it didn't make a lot of sense to try dictation, but maybe I will at some point. Doing that outlining and doing some editing, counting towards my 25 minutes a day, has been very useful. I've been enjoying that. So yeah, I did 7 out of 7 days, and there was one day, which I think it was Wednesday, I was really sick in the middle of the night, woke up in the middle of the night, and when I got up that morning, I was just exhausted. I wasn't sick anymore, but I was just exhausted. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my one day and I'm going to take one of my 2 days and I'm not going to write. And then when I got home from work, I got home early. I got surprised because a bunch of my clients canceled. And I was able to spend 25 minutes working on the outline. So that was really good. So I've been able to get the 7 days in, but I was going to take a day, and I was like, you know what? I can work on my outline. I can work on something tonight for 25 minutes and get my 25 minutes in. Sometimes I think I have to be a little more flexible, because right now I'm just like, I'm getting up in the morning and I'm doing my work. And I know that I'm not as creative in the evening, but I know that if I'm going to do NaNoWriMo, and if I'm going to win NaNoWriMo, I have to work in the morning and in the evening. I can't just do one 25-minute session. I might have to do two 25-minute sessions in the morning and then sneak in another 25-minute session in the evening. I'm not sure how Nano is going to work. It's going to be an experience, and I'll bring you along with me. For this week's Spotlight, I've really been enjoying the videos by Rachel Stephen on YouTube. I enjoy her style of presentation. It's very no-nonsense, very practical information about story structure without being dumbed down, and she has a ton of videos. So if you're trying to do your own, make your own MFA type thing for writing, she's someone I would definitely recommend. So for this week's pod image, one I created, if you'd like to have your image as the week's pod image, label your pick with hashtag ManuscriptingPod on Instagram. Each week I'll pick one and I'll give you a PM and then a shout out on the podcast to whatever links you want. In terms of shout outs, I want to shout out to the folks who've already been so supportive of the podcast, people who've been in the Manuscripting Pod Facebook group, people who joined the Spectrum chat. I really wish more people would join the Spectrum chat. It's so much better than Facebook. The chat structure is really, really good. It doesn't just disappear over time. The search function is fabulous. So Spectrum chat is great. Everyone should join up for it. I want to shout out to Johnny Gamber of the Pencil Revolution and Erasable Podcast. He sent me an article from Writer's Digest. It's about the importance of writing with manual tools and how that can really spark your creativity. The article is called The Pen is Mightier Than the Word Processor, and it was by Elizabeth Sims. It's a fabulous article. Everyone should go and read it. I also want to shout out to my friend Eveline, who I have known for many, many years, possibly as long as I've known Brad Dowdy from The Pen Addict. Eveline and I go way back in terms of online correspondence. We've done art journaling stuff online for a really, really long time. And now she's going to jump into NaNoWriMo. I can't wait. We need to do a ManuPod group on the Nano site so that we can keep track of one another and cheer each other on. So welcome, Eveline. I'm glad that you're going to be writing and doing Nano again. And hopefully this year we can cheer each other on and both win. In terms of support, if you want to show your support for the show, head on over to your favorite location and leave a review. If you've already left a review, or maybe you don't want to engage with Apple, that's okay. Share the show on your favorite or least favorite social media location, a tweet or a post on Facebook. It really, really does help let other people know about the podcast. And reviews really do bump the show up in iTunes ratings, or actually, is it iTunes? It's Apple Podcasts. Whatever the heck Apple is calling themselves now. I think it's Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to support me in another way, I do have a Ko-fi page. You can find the link to that down below. It's Ko-fi/Harper. And feel free to find me on social media at Original LC Harper on most locations. You can find the site over on Manuscripting Pod. And please head on over to spectrum.chat and join that Manuscripting Pod group there. And as always, thank you for listening, and I appreciate your support. Go get your butt in the chair and your fingers on those keys and get writing. Thanks, folks.